Hello and welcome to the Advanced Age Role Playing Gamers podcast. My name is Nathan. I'm one of your co-hosts tonight, and I've also got with me Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, everybody.
And we've got our special guest today, Erik Granström. He's a writer, game designer that works for Free League Publishing, and Free League has just started shipping their Kickstarter for Blood March. And I'm jealous because I don't have my copy yet. It's shipping, but I was hoping it would be here before the interview, but not a chance. Erik, so why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get going.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm living in Sweden and Finland, 2 weeks each place, so I go back and forth. It's pretty close. And I've been doing role-playing scenarios from the 70s or 80s. Long time ago.
Long time.
I'm from start. I'm trained as a veterinarian, actually. But then I've been working in lots of different places in the computer industry and writing, and now I'm writing games and novels.
You're a Renaissance man.
Perhaps. A re-Renaissance man, perhaps.
That's pretty interesting. So you started gaming probably around the same time we did, which was a few years ago.
Right.
Probably my first question is and I'm assuming that you're still playing with friends when you can, when you're not traveling.
Yeah, not actually. I don't play that much role playing games. I make them, but I do play with my children sometimes. They are grown ups now.
Okay.
So they wanted me to play Forbidden Lands with them, and I'm not a very good game master. I more have the ability to sort of come up with things.
When you do get a chance to play now, has it changed that much since from when you played when you were young? As what you enjoy, what I guess has fun changed from?
It's still fun, and it's still somewhat nervous. I have some performance anxiety in this, when being the dungeon master, which I'm always, or the game master nowadays. And so we started playing in the 70s with the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Mm-hmm. I had this guy bringing it home from the US. You couldn't buy it in Sweden at the time. So we did that for a couple of years, and then the Swedish version, Free League has a game called Dragonbane coming out now. That is an iteration of an old Swedish game called Drakar och Demoner, which is dragons and demons, which was very big in the 80s and 90s in Sweden. Very big. I mean, it was, 300,000 or 400,000 kids were playing it, and we were like 8 million at the time. And I since I already had played a lot Dungeons and Dragons, and then when this came around, one of my friends he was writing for the company that started Drakar Demoner, and he asked me, why don't you put something together? So I sent in some stuff, and then I wrote an adventure called Svavelvinter, which is the winter of sulfur. So and that turned out to be, I made I think 5 parts. It was a campaign. It grew to campaign. So and people still play it. Actually, the first game of Free League that they released was Svavelvinter, because they made. I wrote some novels from my old game settings. 4 thick novels. It's like 2,300 pages total. And then they made a game from the novels, updating. Okay. Because it's basically the same story, but of course a little different. So that's what they started with, actually. Only in Swedish, though.
It's funny. Someone that we follow each other on Twitter. He's from Sweden, and I think he's actually trying to run that campaign using a different rule set. Yeah. And we're actually going to play Dragonbane. We're going to start recording that in probably 2 or 3 weeks, as Matt will attest to. I'm a Kickstarter junkie. I'm special when it comes to Free League.
I know the syndrome.
There's so much good stuff. And two of us are actually kind of it's probably dumb, but we're going to co-GM it because we both want to run.
Yeah.
So we're going to take the
I think that's a good idea. We did that actually in the 70s already. So
as long as I've been gaming, I've never co-GM before,
Okay,
but
yeah.
but we both want to play, so we're going to take the starter adventure and each take split up the different adventures and go back and forth.
And some groups they change the game master every play. I think so. You switch.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it as well.
That's the plan, and I don't know if it's going to be fun for us. I don't know if it's going to be fun for listeners. But,
we'll see.
We're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's pretty cool. I had no idea that you're involved with that. So that's.
I'm not really involved in this iteration of Dragonbane yet, but I might become involved. We've been talking about it, but not so far. But I think I probably will get involved one way or the other. And the thing is, when I started writing these novels from the old game setting, the first novel was released by the Iron League. They were called Järn League and the Iron Ring, and those guys were behind Symbaroum, as you know.
Okay, yeah.
So they merged with Free League some years ago, and they also made Mutant.
Oh, okay, that was
Year Zero.
Yeah. So they had this company called the Iron Ring, and then it stopped because the CEO had to do something else. He had another company as well, which took a lot of his time. So we thought, sorry, I can't do this anymore. And then they asked Free League to take over the Svavelvinter game, which was based on my novels and the Mutant franchise. So that's what they started with. So it's kind of full circle all the time here, several circles actually.
So this is the history lesson I was trying to get out of Thomas, but he didn't really reveal all this stuff in our interview with him. So I appreciate you because this is the kind of stuff that's interesting to me. Like I can open up read the book and read the rules and understand all of that, but just kind of this like how things came to be is
it's
super,
a long
super
story.
Cool. Yeah. That's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that with us. So was writing that story, that adventure, was that your first time writing, or had you written other stuff for fun or for pay?
Yeah, I actually published a novel already in 1979. It got published. So I had written a novel already, so I was kind of used to write. And also I had a plan from start to do novels in this setting, which is kind of an Italian Renaissance setting. So it's different from the Forbidden Land setting, which is more like Iron Age, medieval. And I don't know if you know that, perhaps you do, but I mean, the Forbidden Lands started out as a Kickstarter stretch goal to an art book. You know that?
No, it wasn't the main thing. It was just an extra.
The thing is this: you know this old game Dragonbane back in the 80s. Picture it back in the 80s.
Yeah.
They had this one artist that was very famous in Sweden at the time. I mean, everybody knew him then. And then Free League made an art book with his art, Nils Gulliksson. I don't know if the book is around anymore. And when they made that art book, one of the stretch goals was we will make a new game from his art.
Oh, okay.
So that got funded. So a couple of years after that, I got all his art on my table, and they said, "Okay, so here's the old art, which is the one you will find in the books of, in the rule books."
Same artists for bit of reach and.
I think it's more in the Game Masters and the Players book.
Okay.
And they also made some new art in the same style. Anyway, so I got those pictures of his that I knew, of course, very well. And I could do whatever I wanted with them. So I made the Forbidden Land setting, and I had pictures of elves and halflings and orcs and dwarves and all that. So I thought, okay, how can I do something new with this, but still stick to the basics? So that's how it came to be, actually. So I think, okay, we have elves. They live forever. Are they Tolkien-esque? No, I never liked that. I thought there must be something fishy going on here. So that's why I made them more like, as they are in the Forbidden Lands.
Okay.
They're more like, to me, they're more like vampires, actually. Have you seen the movie Interview with the Vampire?
Oh, yeah.
They're more like that. They're kind of blasé and I think everybody else is just meat that will die off and rot. So I made them all sort of fascistoid.
That was really what drew me in with Forbidden Lands initially. It was just how everything was like the fantasy kin that you're used to, the name wise, but even the like the halflings. So like, what was your inspiration for the halflings? They're pretty dark. They're not the jolly halflings.
No. The thing is, I mean, this is spoilers, but obviously everybody knows that, I suppose, right?
Yeah,
it's okay to have spoilers here. I mean, I read Tolkien, obviously, and the halflings are very jolly and kind of. To me, there must be something going on here. It can't be like this. It can't be that. They can't be just happy and nice and all that. So it's a facade. So that's what I worked from, and then I brought in the goblins as they are twin kin, so they're the same kin, really.
Yeah.
So babies are born either halflings or goblins, and the halflings don't want to tell anybody this, so these kids are born in the villages where they hand out the right type to each and then they go home and they just cover everything up. So that's why they are as they are.
I definitely like kind of a darker story, and the art really was pretty evocative of the kind of style I like, the sketching. As far as these stories that you're trying to tell with Forbidden Lands, what are your influences for coming up with these stories? Where do you draw
I pick basically anything from anywhere, but I think mainly it's our own history. I like to read a lot of history. So, and usually, for instance, if I want to come up with some, like the horse people in Aslin, in the Blood March. When I thought, I didn't want them like the Dothraki of Game of Thrones.
Right.
So what I did, I went to history and took the Scythians that lived on the plains north of Iran.
Okay.
And the Scythians and the Parthians, that they fought the Romans, and they looked different from other horse people, but they were still horse people. And I didn't want the Mongols and Attila the Hun and all that. So,
right.
So I tried to pick something, and a very, very good way to do that I can recommend is to pick different things that don't really have anything to do with each other, and then you can mix them into something new. For instance, I had in my old setting, I had a sort of tropical island where I took influence from Pakistan, from the Maya Indians and Sumerians. So and sort of got a mix that worked, but they were familiar but something else. Right. And that's what I'm aiming for mostly. Familiar but something else.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to do it. Is you don't have to be super literal with where you're coming, creating these new things. So that's pretty interesting.
And it is nice to take a twist, even if you have, presenting, people are expecting in fantasy elves, dwarves, halflings, right?
Yeah.
But changing how they behave, right? Changing those social behaviors is nice because it's a fresh way to experience the classes, or the different species. And so I think that's a cool way. And it's for people who've played a long time. It's like, oh, look, it's a jolly halfling, right? Well, no, I get to play a halfling that's maybe not so jolly, or So it's a great way to sort of like re-engage, both get new people who sort of are, kind of shock them into something. Hey, not all fantasy has to be cookie cutter. And for us cynical old gamers,
but also I didn't want to make it so. I didn't want the gotchas, that you're expecting this, but I will give you the opposite. So I wanted to be familiar, but something else. So it has to work on its own. I mean, it doesn't. It's not supposed to be just a reaction towards what you expect.
Right.
Yeah, it's just go in like make the halflings are completely evil, right?
No.
That's right. Yeah, that would just sort of
right. Now, I want to be every kin and every being should have some kind of rationale that they don't think they are evil. They have their agenda, and this is good to us. It's your problem if you don't like it.
Yeah, everybody's the hero in their own story.
Yeah, it's much like in our world. You asked me about inspiration, and I think I get a lot of inspiration from our own current world as well. We got a lot of stories. Everybody thinks they're justified to do what they do, basically.
Yeah.
So.
When I've looked at some of the other titles like that Free League does, like Vaesen and things like that, they borrow a lot from folklore.
Yeah.
So you talked about some like real world influences. Are there some folklore instances?
Yes. I think Vaesen was made as a folklore game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was built on a different folklore. But I pick when I find something I like, I pick it, but I don't sort of try to get it in. It's more if this sounds nice. And also, for instance, I read a book by Paracelsus, if you know him. He was a 1500s physician, sort of proto-physician. And he had a recipe in this book he wrote about how to make a homunculus, like a small type of humanoid. And he had an actual recipe in this book. So I pinched that was for the Tricarian setting. But if I find something, some tidbits, I can just take them because this is so funny.
Yeah, especially if you grab something really weird and shunt it into something that you're doing, they can really make something unexpected that pulls in people like me. So. Yeah,
but not pure folklore, no.
Okay. And do you have like when you set out to write something, do you ever write just for fun to create things for yourself, or is it really you always have like an end goal?
Now it starts. I found a process of writing that works for me. I don't know if it works for anybody else, but the problem for me when writing also novels and games is if I know too much, I get bored. So I have to sort of come up with ideas, and then I can put down, okay, so we're going there. For instance, I'm writing a novel in the Forbidden Land setting right now, which is almost finished. And when I start a chapter, I think, okay, where do we go out from this chapter? We have to be there at the end of the chapter. But I don't want to know what happens in the chapter because I want to be able to move around and sort of see things for myself and get excited about it. And that's... So I don't over-plan it.
Mm-hmm.
Some would say I under-plan it probably, but I know some constructors because I know some here in Sweden that they make a map of the land first, and they different parts of the land, and here people are fishing, here they are doing agriculture and whatever. I rather start with a drunk wizard waking up in a barrel somewhere, and then I'll see, okay, what's around me.
That's actually, after reading more about sort of Forbidden Lands, it's almost how the game plays. That's how the game plays.
Yeah,
right?
it is
an
actually
open sandbox.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, I kind of never published, right? Dabbled trying to write based off the games we played, right? Do you ever include elements of the mechanics in the writing, or is it strictly a creative process set in a world, or do you ever blend? Especially after you mentioned kind of the not knowing, do you ever blend any of the actual mechanics into the writing process?
I do. I'm not a rules person. I'm more of a narrative person. So I prefer coming up with stories and situations. But and when I wrote the setting for Forbidden Lands, the rules were not around. They haven't made them yet. So I wrote the setting first.
Okay.
And then they came up with the rules, and I take it they work very good together. But when I often suggest small local rules for something that they encounter. Sometimes Free League takes them, mostly not. they have better people to do this. I have this guy, Per Holmström, I believe is, if I remember right, who's a rules guy. And if I have a problem and I say, okay, we have to rulify this, then I discuss with him, or he comes up with a suggestion. That's a better way to do it, because I'm not really that interested, or I don't know that much about rules either. So
yeah, I think that really the duality you kind of described there is a difference between how I run games and how Matt runs games.
Okay.
Yes, I am definitely more. I'm always fascinated by the systems.
Yeah.
Whether the systems make sense, whether they flow or not. I like narrative, but I am not. Yeah, I am not as
But then you have your roles.
I get a lot of accusations of being railroady.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean I understand. We need rules. Just that there are better people than me doing that. And if you're going to be dungeon masters or game master together, I mean, then you take the rules and you take the narratives.
Yeah.
That would be one way. That's how we ran it in the 70s, actually.
Oh, okay.
I made up the stories, and I had this guy taking care of the rules.
I wish it was that way. It's going to be two narratives. It's going to be him and one of our other guys, Malcolm, who's like our narrative supreme.
Okay. Yeah. He's. I'm the silly narrative, and he is the well, what kind of sauce do they have on the potatoes type of narrative.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. I definitely like, and that's probably one of the things that attracted me to Forbidden Lands is I want to be surprised with the players. So just being able to, okay, you're here on the map. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And I have some things going on other places, and I hope you run into those things and you interact with those things, but you may decide that you want to go to the coast. So I like to keep it nice and loose. And in the game that in your setting that they came up with is really kind of suits that pretty well. So I like it. I think a lot of our listeners are pretty familiar with Free League, but just in case someone who hasn't cracked open a Forbidden Lands book before, could you kind of go into the setting and describe the setting in your words? Yeah, it's the base. The thing is with the Free League, the Forbidden Lands setting is that it's even the Game Masters told things in the basic Game Masters book, but then it turns out this might not be entirely true. So you have to be open-minded as a game master, and some like that and some don't. Anyway, the story goes that once there were elves and dwarves in this land, and the humans came sailing from over the sea, led by their god that was a raven with a snake in its claws. And then the humans arrived, and there was war. But then the raven god said, listen, this is a big land. We can just split it. I'll split it in the northern and the southern part, and I'm bringing up these mountains between you. So the dwarves and the elves, you stick to the north, and the humans stick to the south. And then the elves and the dwarves get the orcs as a slave kin. That's the story. Now it has turned out. If you read I suppose you read the Blood March as a PDF. Yeah. So there's a challenge to that story, as you know, then in there, that perhaps the humans weren't led by the Raven God at all. They were doing something entirely different. This is a spoiler, but they were actually hunting the raven that stole the snake from their masters. But they lost their memory, so they thought they were following the raven. It's about a little like the movie Memento, if you've seen that. Right, yeah. What am I doing here? Am I hunting him, or is he hunting me? And it also seems that the orcs were not at all made as a slave kin. They were enslaved. and so this is also very much like our own world's history to me, that you get a narrative told by the victors. The victor, yeah. But then there's another narrative, and that might come up at some point when you don't want it to come up. And I try to build that into, I think, my part, I mean, there are a lot of third-party people doing adventure sites and one-shots, and so I think what I can do is bring in a campaign that sort of runs along and that evolves and new things come into play. So I think I focus on that, because that I can do the long and the complex narrative. Mm-hmm. And then the game masters and people can pick whatever they like from that and change whatever they like as well. So I try to have a long story. It's not that I know how it will end or even unfold, but if you get a certain complexity, my experience is that you can always find patterns in this complexity to find new things that you didn't see from start. If you plan it all from start, it gets pretty square. And I try to avoid that. I did that earlier when I was a game master in the 80s. And I thought, this is not good. You shouldn't do this. You should always keep open hooks and open ends
that you can tie together, because you will always find new ways.
Players will do that.
They will do that.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like a great opportunity, having this much creative control over the setting. Like you said, stuff is introduced in the original books.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, clearly you can reveal or change or modify. And I think that's always one of kind of an aspect when you have a system that's very heavily and rigidly sort of has its canon.
Yeah.
Versus the ability to say, okay, you've all been playing in this scenario and this is what you believe is real.
Yeah.
But now you're going to find out it's not, right?
No.
And I think that's a great, that sounds like an excellent sort of way to be able to sort of have that creative opportunity to expand or change the way people see the game world they're playing in.
And I hope that the game masters like this as well. I mean, some don't, but many do. That's my experience. And I mean, I tell somebody, they write to me and ask me, I hope you don't get mad if I do this and this. I said, no, listen, this is not my setting. This is our setting. And whatever you do is fine, as long as you can make it work. Whatever works is fine. And then I said, perhaps I will publish something that will negate all that, what you said. But usually you can work around it and say, well, okay, that's what you believe, but.
Right. So, this is what you thought was the truth.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, and I think game masters, Nathan mentioned it earlier too, but in some of the different free league games, some of these open world games, right? And I'll talk about the mechanics, but like the mechanics of the open world or the solo play, it is nice. It's a GM. You're just used to knowing everything. And it's nice to not know what's behind the door, right? You kind of discover it the minute they do. If they pull like a random encounter or, something changes, that is nice as a GM who's just usually reading the book, knows everything, tells everything. So I don't know, Nathan, you feel the same way?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely like just being able to take some of those random elements and find interesting and fun ways to improvise them into the plot lines I have going on, and that's worked out really well in the stories we've told so far. But just to get back to some of the other stuff we were just talking about, with the unreliable narrator. This is speaking of that. If you've ever read Gene Wolfe,
yeah, absolutely, I love it.
This is like, if you want to talk about unreliable narrators, this whole series is they're lying to you the whole time. So I appreciate that. Even like Star Wars, going from the first one to Darth Vader and being the father and everything like that. So all that. That's spoiler. Sorry.
Oh no. Oh, I mean no.
I think people sometimes forget that that's a fairly common technique or tactic to telling stories, and sometimes it's good to be surprised. With that being said, I guess one of the things I wanted to touch on: do you have like anything kind of overarching that you're planning? Because there's other parts of the Forbidden Lands that have yet to be revealed yet.
Yeah, I do have ideas, and I think, okay, so I probably go this way, and that's all I need to know currently, I feel. So, for instance, I'm now writing on the Older Land expansion, which is south of Ravenland. So, Aslin is, these three are together, sort of connected very closely. And then we have the Drawn Lands, which are beyond Aslin to the west. And I have some idea if we go, which we don't know, but if we go there, I know how I will try to move the plot in that direction. It's sort of be more of a desert land where necromancy is said to have arisen, came up. So I have some plans for that as well, but I don't know much about it. But I know, okay, just don't spoil that. For when I write, I know, keep it open so you can go there, and then we'll see what happens. And it always sorts out. I'm really amazed that it does. You can always find a road forward. When somebody points out something in the books, well, it says here that it's like this, and there it says like this. Then you think, okay, you swear to yourself, and then you come up with a solution to it. Because that's the way it is in our world all the time, We thought it was like this, but then it turned out, okay. So how do we explain that? And then you just have to try to come up with an explanation. And you can always do.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's not the same. If some of these television series, the first one was kind of Twin Peaks, and Lost, the TV series Lost. It was mystifying all the time. And then when it came to the end, the writers didn't know. We don't understand. We had no idea about this. That's what they said, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I usually have some kind of answer to the questions. I just don't tell it. And but if I have it, I know that I can work forward all the time. I don't want to just put something mysterious in there just because it's mysterious.
So you have like an end game or a resolution, but you just don't know how you're going to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.
Which is, it's funny. We're again talking about differences. So I'm okay with the open-ended type of things, right? My wife can't stand it. Any movie that doesn't explain what happened at the end, she's like, what? You know, I'm just like, oh, it just happened, right?
If you see a movie with your wife, it's great if it's a movie that you can discuss afterwards. And
yes.
I wonder if it's like this, or well, that can't be true. You know, it's I love those. And I mean, the thing is, you can have there are games that are very set. So if you like that, you just pick one of those games. So I wanted to do this in another way. So I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. It's just one way of doing it. You can play another game, and it's another way around. So. It's like I read this book about how to write by Stephen King. I think it's on writing is instructions for novel writers, and obviously Stephen King is a very successful writer. It's just that his advice don't fit me at all.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying that okay, that worked for you, fine. It doesn't work for me. So there's not one way of doing it, and the same thing here.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his, but I will tell you, he's for me as a reader.
Yeah,
his short stories fine. His really long stories, I think it's the opposite maybe of your approach. I don't think he knows what the end is supposed to be.
No, and he explains that in the book.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He says you shouldn't have a plan because then it gets dead. You should just have a vision. You know, this would be cool. Like you have these people getting shut in. You know,
right?
The dome, for instance,
right.
And then he doesn't know how to sort of complete it. To me, so sometimes it works fine. Of course, but not always.
Yeah, I find when I'm writing, sometimes I don't have a resolution, and I kind of hope that through play that the players will kind of like
will tell you
will tell me what the resolution is. Yeah, that's exactly what I was planning the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe that's lazy, or but I mean sometimes it works out, and sometimes I start to flounder. So it's
but it's like Game of Thrones. To me, he was kind of just expanding and expanding all the time, and I thought I knew that he doesn't know how to end this. He will not get it together in the end.
Yeah.
So and I don't think he did either. But perhaps he has a plan. But it's I sort of saw that in his writing that he's just diverging all the time.
Too many things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Like I absolutely love Star Wars. I have all kinds of Star Wars stuff around, but I kind of feel like George Lucas is the same way. Like I feel like there's a lot of things that he just started going in a direction, and he had to kind of
and then you build from there. But the thing is, you want to be able to say that what you already said has to be true in a way, one way or the other. You know about the TV series Dallas, where one entire season turned out to be a dream by one of the characters. That is really a catastrophe, and you don't want that.
Yeah,
it is different ways approaches. So a lot of folks are familiar with there's the big games, right? The ones that we grew up on playing Dungeons and Dragons. If you had folks that had primarily played D&D or like Pathfinder, like our group is literally just discovering Pathfinder, and some of these other games that are from Free League. If someone had played those traditionally and was getting ready to sit down and play Forbidden Lands, what's some advice or some things to sort of like prep them so that they let them know going into this.
I don't know these other games very well. Like I said, I don't play them a lot, but I think what you should do is keep an open mind, because I get a lot of comments and they kind of surprise me that, well, in that game we did this and we could do that. Why don't we have this profession and why don't we have that game? Well, you have it already in that game. Why can't you just take whatever you get here and do something with that instead? I think you just keep an open mind. I told before we started here, I think, that I made a metal album with a musician friend, I hadn't listened to metal, basically. I listened to hard rock, but not metal. And he sent me some samples. It was just like a wall of sound to me. I couldn't understand anything. But then I thought, okay, there is something here, because there are lots of fans of metal. So I listened and sort of got the structure. Now I can listen to metal music. And that's the attitude you should have towards everything, basically. That there's something here. People like it. I don't get it. So I try to see what it is that they like. And usually you can find something. It's so much more boring to say, well, it's not like that. I won't touch this. It's not like what I'm used to. So just keep an open mind and take whatever you can from this game, because there's stuff in here that you probably won't get from in the games you mentioned. So be happy about that. And don't look at what you're not getting.
Right.
That would be my advice for life, basically.
Yeah, I think we as players kind of get stuck in ruts sometimes. If we play just one system all the time, we're always looking for that stealth roll or something that we're just used to doing. I'm playing a thief type character, so I've got to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's good advice. Is just to really kind of don't block out those other experiences, start from scratch, like you're playing a completely different game, and don't try to compare it to the other things.
I think like Magic in Forbidden Lands is a little different from what you're used to.
Yeah.
Some like it, some don't. But it's more, to me, it's more like Witcher magic, that you can use it but you can also fight with a sword if you're a magician.
Yeah,
and it's dangerous to use magic. So.
And I love the power and danger of Magic, and Matt's smiling because I like consequences.
Yes.
So if you take big risks, sometimes there are consequences that you did not plan for, and that to me is super fun.
Yeah, and that's the story too. I mean,
having a bad roll isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you can really advance the story, even like character death. Like player death is sad, but character death is not necessarily sad.
Yeah. You don't want let's just try to reduce player death.
I like to joke with people about killing the players, and some people don't get it. But
well, even I think you mentioned, even the Forbidden Lands. Again, this is a mechanics thing. So Forbidden Lands has that sort of, even if you fail a roll, I think you get something back, like willpower or something.
Yeah.
So even though it can be considered maybe a more deadly system, more dangerous system than say D&D, which I think Nathan and I would both agree is almost flawed.
No, it's more like a game to me. It's a game.
Yeah, very hard to dive. He's tried so many times.
Okay.
So even though something is dangerous, you run the risk of it. No one takes a chance, but offering those rewards for that risk, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that it adds a more dynamic play.
And pushing the rolls.
Yeah. I think that we've been across the board really excited about almost every single thing we've seen come out of Free League.
Oh, great.
I think just the approach, the writing has been, a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I don't work for them. I'm a freelancer, so I have no interest in more than I like them. But I was struck by that they are so nice to people, that they try to help you, and they're not dicks, basically.
We've had incredible luck with Free League. We're nobody. We're a small hobby podcast, and they have consistently put, like yourself, authors, creators, willing to sit down and talk with us, and it's been great. It's been great for us. We've learned a lot about history stuff as just players we would never learn.
No.
So yeah.
And I mean, to me, it's the discussions with players and game masters is really a lot of the reward to do this. Also, and when I write novels, it's great to talk to people. I never liked really sitting on a stage and talking to an audience. I like when I sit down and take a beer with somebody.
Yeah.
And we discuss something. So
in your writing, again, so do you ever, any of the people that you've played with or anything you've run, or like, do you ever feature any of those characters? Do they ever cross over into any of the games?
Absolutely. That's what they do. So in in the novel, I'm almost completed now. I have Marigold, for instance, is one of the characters, and one of these Rust priest persons that are in the game, and I'm planning to evolve them too, and have King Algero. I don't know if you play that.
I have
Weatherstone, or you come to a castle where there's a dead king.
Okay.
I don't think we completed the story. I was supposed to tell you about the setting. Anyway, so I have characters, absolutely. But then I make usually like in my old setting, I had NPCs. All the main characters were NPCs in the game.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so now I made them into characters, so they were the ones you were following.
All right, so let's talk about Blood March. What are folks who have bought the previous expansions? What are they in for when they get Blood March?
Well, I don't think I actually finished talking about the old setting. I just came to the humans, and anyway,
yeah. So,
but to complete that story briefly, it's the humans invaded obviously the elves and dwarf country, which is Ravenland, where the basic setting was, and there's a war there, and a wizard opens a portal to demons that overwhelm the whole country, and all the humans are killed. And after that, there are demons around still. So and the country where the humans came from, they don't want anything to do with this anymore. So they just put up a wall and say, we don't talk about Ravenland anymore. And that's Older Land. That's where the humans are, which is the next setting I'm writing about. So this is shut off, this Ravenland. And also there's a neighboring country called Asleen, which is described in the Blood March. The Blood March is basically part of Asleen. And that was also shut off, because the thing is, when all these demons were around and the wizard couldn't stop them, he realized that this is not going well. He told them, well, there's a very nice country, Asleen there. Why don't you go there and do whatever demons do? And they did, and he managed to shut down the portal where they came from when they were gone. And then most of them died, but the rest have been harassing Asleen for the last centuries. And now the road there has opened in the Blood March, so people come from Ravenland, people come from Alderland. I want to see what's happening in there. Is there something for me in there? Are there dead villagers that I can rob? And also there's a power strife going on among the natives in that country. So these people come from the neighboring countries, and they try to get in on the
plunder.
Yeah, they want to seek power over their Asleen, and you have to, as a player, you can help either one of them. You can team up with the bad guys or the good guys or the gray guys, which are most of them, and decide on how you want to act, or you can just go and plunder with everybody else. But in the end of that expansion, somebody will come out stronger than the others, and that's where it starts in the next expansion. So you sort of you will arrive at some kind of winner in Asleen, and if the players don't care, this will play out as part of the environment. So you go in there and you look for it, and it's a little strange because since they had a demon infestation there for several hundred years, they have big jungles that are kind of like entrails spilled out all over the landscape. They are kind of red forests, they are called, and they're living and they're eating people and they're spreading. So some parties want to spread that, some want to stop it, obviously. And also they have elves in the Asleen. The elves there have been corrupted, so they believe the world should be red. The master of these red forests just hates every other color. So he wants it all to be red. So he wants this jungle to spread all over the place, and he's got the local elves to help him. And the elves from Ravenland thinks they become mad. We have to stop this. So they go in there and try to investigate how can we do something about it and so on. So it goes on from Ravenland, where you played Raven's Purge, perhaps. And there are characters are continuing in the new setting. So you can just go on playing if you like, or you can start it from a new. And the same will be in Older Land. You can go there and build on what happened before. And it's made in a way so it doesn't really matter how the last one ended. I mean, you can just adjust it so you can move on. So that was my ambition.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
And reading through the different books and the storylines, there's a lot of intrigue in there if you look for it.
Yeah, and also, for instance, I try to make the dwarves and orcs and elves that they have different opinions among different groups among them, so they're not just like one solid faction.
Yeah, I think that's. Gives the players a lot of freedom to decide where they want to line up or with any of those groups or none of them. So
exactly. And the same goes for Asleen, and the same will be in Elderland too. That you can side with anybody, and you can be on your own if you like.
Okay.
So
that sounds exciting. I've been going through the PDF, but it's nice to have it just slightly kind of put like that. It gives me a little bit of fresh perspective on it.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you're writing a novel based on the Forbidden Lands. Is it a disconnected storyline, or is it part of the larger framework?
I think I'm basically making it as one way of the story to play out.
Okay.
So, and then obviously expanding it too. So you will meet a lot of new stuff in there, but I'm following the storyline so far. And for instance, I've been to Weatherstone, which is an adventure site in the game, Raven's Purge. I know it's actually in the basic rules.
Yep.
And they meet a lot of characters that you meet in the game. So, for instance, Marigal, which is a demon that many like. He's one of the characters in the novel and so on.
One of my favorite authors is Tad Williams. I really like how he writes the antagonists. Like he really, and we talked about how everybody's the hero in their own story earlier, and that's something he does really, really well. Is like okay, I don't agree with that person's a villain; they're the bad guy.
Yeah,
but I can kind of see where they're coming from.
Yeah,
so
that's what I aim to do as well. Yeah. There has to be some kind of logic in what they do, and they have to have a name and so on.
And is it going to be in English also, or
I hope so. I write in Swedish because I'm not that comfortable in writing. I'm not a literary person in English at all.
Right.
But I'm writing in Swedish, and I hope it will get translated. And of course, since the game is so international, I hope the novels might just follow.
I hope so too.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to. My earlier novels were very many pages in each of them. I'm trying to make these a little more easier to handle, and also follows the same person. And I probably switch person to the next book, but you will sort of, so you don't have to. Who was this again?
Yeah. So you do like one point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I hope it gets translated, because I think that's a good way to, when you're trying to familiarize yourself with a setting.
Yeah.
Is novels. I mean, it worked with Dragonlance and lots of those stories.
And that's what I did with the last setting as well. So I'm used to it. And also, I don't feel like I have to limit myself to the game. It has to be different formats, so you have to do them differently. But they crossbreed very well, I think. And as a novel writer, I tend to think as a game constructor. You have to play out all the options in your head to see, is that a viable thing to do, and so on. So it's been useful to me as well.
Cool.
That's great. We're close to wrapping up here, but do you want to mention your blog or any other things that you're doing right now?
It's a blog I started in 2008 in Swedish. But when I think about something in more depth, for instance, theory about how to write and stuff like that, I usually put it there just to have it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a little slow lately, but now I'm picking it up again since I'm writing again a novel now. And now I'm mostly writing there in English. So perhaps you can make a link.
Yeah. I'll put the link. I read a couple articles. The one about the unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And the liberalism and dark fantasy was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
too,
and you can usually use stuff. Whatever you read, you can use some of it in your games. So I think, yeah. And there are some good stuff there in Swedish as well, actually, I think. So I might translate that later. I will see about that.
Google Translate. I can probably get the gist. But
Well, yeah. Perhaps.
Poorly, but. Speaking of Translate, this is dumb, but I'm going to ask anyway. Is there a in English we have the word murder hobo or phrase murder hobo?
Yeah,
is there a similar term in Swedish?
I think it's pretty. I think we use the English word actually. I know what you mean. It's very common in gaming here too. And well, you can do that, but it should get consequences, like you said.
Right. Yeah, that's the fun. That's the fun. But it's fun to play it that way sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
Well, Matt, do you have any other?
No, I don't. This has been great. Yeah, if you've got anything else, any other projects or anything you'd like to let us know.
Yeah, I think we covered most of it, and it's been really nice talking to you.
It's great talking to you. I'm glad we were able to make the time work out.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to get my book. I've got some plans too. So if you get like a weird email from me in the future,
I'm really waiting for reviews and game reports now. So because this the Blood March, we had some production problems, as you know, so it got delayed, and I kind of been waiting for a long time now to see what people actually think about it. So I'm waiting for that.
I like what I've read so far. My only regret is not backing to get the cloth map. I'm kicking myself. Man, I really should have.
But anyway, learn from the last one, I think. If people have been asking for that,
it's just like it's more money. It's like I'm buying too many Kickstarters already.
But he's got a serious Kickstarter issue.
It's bad. Yeah, my wife is terrific. She's a huge
it's okay with free league games. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's a mild drug.
Mild drug. Well, thank you so much, Erik.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you having you on the show. And next time you have something that you want to talk about, you can just reach out to us. And thanks to everybody who's watching or listening. Look forward to seeing our Dragonbane stuff in the fall. I think it'll be.
I'm very jealous because I can't play.
Oh yeah. Okay.
He's poor guy.
Yeah, but I'll be watching.
Better. Gotta get those clicks up.
That's right.
Well, thanks again, everybody.
Yeah,
and
take care.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.